Hello, my name is Nisa Hogan, and over the course of this class, I've been looking at accessibility in adventure tourism. So let's get started. In this presentation, I'm going to be looking at an introduction of what accessibility and what adventure tourism is. I'm also going to be looking at my data analysis, a marketing analysis, human resources, a finance aspect, the leadership, and also a conclusion. Now, you may be wondering why I chose accessibility. So, in my second semester at UNLV, since I did finish up my undergrad here, I tore my meniscus and I was in a wheelchair for 6 weeks. And I really was put in the shoes of somebody who has a disability, and that almost transformed how I look at life. And so that has been what my research has been all about for the past year. Okay, so starting off with the introduction, according to the ADA title in 2024, accessibility is ensuring people with disabilities have full access to the same services, programs, and areas as able-bodied people without discrimination. And according to Headrush Technologies in 2017, adventure tourism is an activity that involves physical activity in nature and a cultural exchange, such as activities that push you out of your comfort zone, so like skydiving. Over the course of this presentation, I'm going to discuss how these two topics are related and how adventure tourism could actually tap into this market and create something incredibly memorable. To start off, I conducted a single-factor ANOVA test utilizing data that I got from Google Trends. As we can see from the graph, adventure had way more searches than accessibility and tourism combined. This observation proves that people are looking for more adventure in their lives, which paves the path for adventure tourism to emerge. This also tells us that if and when a destination offers accessibility features, then the company itself will have to be the ones to show it off because people are not specifically looking for it. Hopefully, with this trend of adventure tourism starting to catch on, I would expect to see the number of searches to start to increase. Lastly, we can see from the table that the p-value is 0, which proves that these three components are related in the mind of the consumer. This shows that it is crucial for businesses to consider accessibility. Next up, we were able to look at our topics through one of the lenses of marketing, and the one that made the most sense for my topic was an environmental scan. The environmental scan allows you to look at external factors that impact the success of an idea, a project, a current trend, or even a company. For this environmental scan, I decided to look at inclusivity, wellness benefits, and consumer interests. Starting with the inclusivity factor, people with disabilities have similar desires to able-bodied people. But in a recent survey by Expedia, they found that only 54% of people said that they saw travel options that were accessible. That's according to the Adventure Travel Trade Association on August 10th, 2022. So it is important to be more inclusive of people with and without disabilities and make the right adjustments. The next factor that I looked at was the wellness benefits that adventure tourism has on the physical and mental health of individuals, which is why it is important to make this opportunity available to everyone. Finally, I talked about the growing consumer interest, which is due to people shifting from wanting physical possessions to now wanting a true experience, which can be attributed to the rise of social media. But it is in adventure tourism's favor. In fact, this industry is expected to grow from $321.2 billion industry in 2024 to approximately $745.7 billion in 2035, according to the Future Market Insights Global and Consulting study that was conducted in 2025. All these factors have an exponential influence on the success of adventure tourism as a whole and how accessibility could be an incredible asset. Moving on to the human resources aspect of accessibility and adventure tourism. For this section, I decided to focus on training and development. This concept of training and development should be consistently reevaluated as an ongoing process that evolves with new technologies that emerge. According to Simon Darcy in 1998, there are three components to accessibility: physical, sensory, and communication access. Physical access includes ramps, handrails, lifts, and lowered counters. Sensory access is achieved through tactile marketing, visual signs, and audio cues. Lastly, communication access includes clear signage, alternative formats, and support for speech and language deficiencies. All of these suggestions take a lot of training and development for the destination, but they are also applicable to adventure tourism. For example, the visual signs for sensory access, you could put more visual signs or signs with braille on the path to increase accessibility. Eventually, it would be nice to have a universal design that could be used for every adventure tourism destination. But until then, we just need to keep striving for a more inclusive environment. Next up, we looked at accessibility in adventure tourism through the lens of finance. And in order to complete this task, I had to look at the overall impact of financial statements, some financial ratios, forecasting, and capital budgeting. First off was the overall impact on the financial statements, which was significant because places that attract more tourists will increase revenue, not only for the destination, but local businesses in town as well, according to True for All Travel Agency in 2024. However, it is important to note that making a destination accessible will affect your bottom line, which is why we looked at the asset turnover rate, which is net sales divided by average total assets. Now, initially, this will be quite low because the organization will have to invest in a lot of assets to make their place accessible. But as more visitors come, then the revenue will increase, and this will lead to long-term efficiency. The next financial ratio that I looked at was the net profit margin, because once again, it will be pretty low due to the extra expenses, but then it will stabilize after guests start arriving and then the revenues start pouring in. Then I looked at forecasting from a qualitative perspective, because adding accessible features to adventure tourism destinations is still really new. I believe that this would be the best way for organizations to forecast because they would be able to look at opinions of experts who had found some of the tips and tricks that have worked in other tourist sites, like Israeli did in his article in 2002. Finally, capital budgeting, I believe that given the obvious benefits for not only the consumers but also for the local economy, it is completely justified to allocate capital funds to these improvements. All in all, there is a lot to think about when it comes to the financial implications, but it is important to keep in mind the bigger picture and know that if you implement the proper features, then your investment will be well worth it. Last but certainly not least, I looked at the concept of adding accessible features to adventure tourism through the lens of leadership. As we have all learned through our program, and probably in our undergrad program, Bowman and Deal came up with this 4 frames of leadership. And for this concept, I found it most applicable to talk about the human resources frame, because it emphasizes the importance of having the right people. Peralta in 2020 talked about the ripple effect that happens when you reinforce misconceptions. But if you use more people-first language, then it will trickle down to your employees and eventually into how your customers feel at your organization. When you implement this frame of mind, there are a lot of benefits for your organization, including starting to empower your employees through support, active listening, and creating a more inclusive environment. But this can be very difficult if you do not prioritize relationships. When utilizing this mindset, it is important to not only listen to your guests, but also to your employees, because some of them may have someone in their circle of influence who has a disability. Some benefits that this frame could also offer are reducing the turnover rate, maintaining employee satisfaction, and inspiring higher performance work. These benefits are especially important in the hospitality industry because turnover rates are skyrocketing, as we well know. So if we as an industry took a more human resources approach, then maybe it would have positive effects. However, there are some challenges and downfalls, including focusing too much on people and not enough on policies and technology. This can lead to multiple problems, as we've seen. So it is important to find the right balance. In conclusion, this was an amazing project that allowed me to dive deeper into a topic that I'm very passionate about and dissect it from various lenses. Going into this project, I thought it was going to be the most difficult to find research on the financial and human resources aspects. And I was partially correct. The financial paper was difficult, but after completing that part, I understood the importance of understanding the implications of investing in an idea that has a huge impact on assets and revenue. The other topic that I ran into difficulties with was leadership, and I think it's because accessibility and adventure tourism are new topics. And by combining them, you go into uncharted territory. However, over the span of this course, I was able to find some very key takeaways from all sections. So let's get into those. The data analytics part at the beginning set the foundation of why it's important to talk about these topics and how the ownership lies with the organization or destination. The marketing section allowed me to see why adventure tourism has taken off in such a short amount of time and how these external factors are linked to accessibility as well. Then we went into the human resources area, and at first I thought it was going to be very difficult, but after being able to choose to look at training and development, it became way easier because it is so important to have the right training and development programs in order to have a successful and inclusive business. Then we looked at the financial aspects, which allowed me to look at the many pros and some cons to such a huge investment. Lastly, I looked at the benefits and challenges of focusing on the human resources frame of leadership. All in all, I enjoyed this class and my time in this accelerated master's program with all of you. And I look forward to working alongside of each of you in the future. So let's go out and make this industry a better place for guests and employees. Thank you so much. These next 4 slides are all of my references, so I'm going to click through them right now. If you want, you can totally pause to see where I found some of these, or just email me if you want to find another resource that I have here. So here's my second page, my third, and my fourth page. Finally, thank you so much for having me in this class and for everybody accepting. This has been an incredible opportunity and experience. Feel free to reach out to me at any point. I look forward to continuing my relationship with every single one of you. Bye, y'all. Have a great summer.